Good morning, everybody. I'm Whitney Thompson, Deputy Director for Workforce Education for the Community College Board, and welcome to the Rev Up EV Initiative Kickoff meeting. I do apologize. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold this week, and so my voice is a little better bit today, but luckily you won't be hearing from just me today, so I will spare you that. If you could go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat, that would be really helpful. Name, role, as well as institution. So as I mentioned, I will be joined by some colleagues from IGEN, as well as I wanted to introduce you to someone on our team who will be, for whatever reason, that slide isn't wanting to show up. Hold on one second. Give me a second, y'all. The slide was being wonky earlier, so I'm wondering if that's not why it's showing up in the full slideshow. So I'll switch back to the slideshow, but I did want you all to see folks who you will be engaging with over the next year and a half. I'm Whitney Thompson, Deputy Director for Workforce Education, as I said earlier, and I will be the sort of lead from the ICCB perspective for this. I wanted to turn it over and introduce our new Director for Clean Energy Programs, Dana Nguyen, who will be your main point of contact for this grant from the ICCB side. Dana?
Hi, Whitney. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. Yeah, as Whitney mentioned, I will be assuming the role of the Director for Clean Energy Programs beginning March 1st. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be transitioning from my current role as an Associate Director in Career and Technical Education. So some of you may know me kind of from working in that space. And I'll just kind of also like add in, I've had previous experience working for IGEN and some of the community colleges on solar workforce development initiatives in 2020 and 2021. So I was kind of there for some of COVID and everything, but I'm looking forward to working with you on this project. Thanks.
All right. Hey, hello. My name's David Hughesmuller. I am the Executive Director for IGEN. And IGEN's really excited and happy to work with Whitney and Dana. And it's good to see Dana. She's familiar with our folks here, so that's exciting. I've been Executive Director at IGEN for maybe almost 9 months. And prior to that, I was Sustainability Manager at the College of Lake County for 9.5 years. So lots of college experience. But I'd like to share, we will be helping out the colleges and with the coaching and technical assistance and training opportunities. And we'll get into more of those details later on. But first, let me introduce Kurt Rendell, Dr. Rendell. If you could just introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kurt Rendell. I work at Heartland Community College as the Executive Director of Program Development and Innovation, where we've developed our electric vehicle program. And I'm excited to join this project with IGEN to provide some of the grant coaching and industry collaborative facilitation in a consultant capacity, and then continue to work on the curriculum side through my role with the Heartland Community College.
Thanks, Kurt. We've also got Tim, Brad, and Rob here from IGEN. IGEN staff, they'll be helping colleges out as well as coaches. Tim, are you around?
Yeah, I am. Had to get myself unmuted, David.
Okay. I don't know if I did warning that we'd be calling on you. So
yeah, I wasn't expecting it.
All right.
No, it's great to be working with this group. I'm looking forward to working with Dana. I've known Dana a long time. Met Whitney a while back, a few weeks ago at the ICCB, and excited to talk to Kurt here at the upcoming conference there at Heartland, and it's going to be a great program. we're very excited to be part of it. And,
So how long have you been with iGen, Tim?
oh gosh, 2009, 8, 9, 10, something, when it started.
Since the beginning. So yeah,
Yeah.
iGen's been around for almost 15 years. And so
I was a sustainability director at John A. Logan College, moved from there into the facilities, but continued to work with iGen as a facility director and sustainability coordinator for the college. So been along it's been a long ride, and it keeps getting better and better. So very excited to be part of this.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Tim. Brad McCormick. Brad, are you there?
I am here. Yeah.
Could you introduce yourself?
It's good to be here this morning. I'm Brad McCormick, and I was in the community college system for 31 years at a couple of the colleges, and was real happy to be able to join the iGen team last May, around May 1st. And so looking forward to continuing to work with the colleges.
Thanks, Brad. And Rob, I think I saw that you were on the call as well. He might be in his car. It might be hard for him. Oh, there you are.
Maybe a little, I don't know if you can hear me, I got a little background noise. I'm in traffic, but Rob Hilgenbrink, I'm a former CFO, about 35 years in the system. Been with iGen as long as Tim, about 15 years. And my role is financial advisor to iGen during that time.
Thanks. Thanks, team. Whitney, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks. Thanks, David. Yeah, we're very excited to be able to bring in subject matter expertise as it relates to this grant, particularly as we think about professional development and technical assistance. So you'll be hearing from these folks again as we talk about that particular element of this grant. So today what we're going to do, I'll give a little bit of background in terms of who's a part of this particular grant, kind of what program areas that the colleges are focusing on. We'll talk a little bit about required activities and deliverables. And then again, I'll turn it back over to iGen so they can talk about their approach to professional development and technical assistance. This is really a system level collaboration and coordination. Usually when we do grants, we do some coordination and collaboration, but this one's really going to be a system approach to this work. So, and then we'll talk some boring things such as administrative requirements and reporting, and then we'll give some time for you all to ask some questions at the end. All right. So just as a reminder, this is a state-funded grant that we received in state fiscal year 24. $10 million was allocated to the Community College Board to promote the scale of electrical vehicle technology programs, as well as advanced manufacturing programs that support the overall EV infrastructure. And so we decided to divide that up into two spaces. So one, for colleges who really aren't there in terms of development and expansion, but really are wanting to get into this space. So thinking about doing a needs assessment, building capacity for future development of related programs. But the bulk of the funding was set aside for colleges to be able to build, develop, and scale their current electric vehicle technology and related programs. So as I mentioned, we have two cohorts here, and you all will be working together as one, but then there will be times where sort of cohort A and cohort B may be working together as we think about program development and various issues that you all are facing on your campuses. So again, this is really, cohort A is going to be working on capacity building, engaging employers, obviously participating in the EV network, thinking about building curriculum, and then going through the various professional development and training needs. These are smaller grants. They're a year-long grant, but really it's to set you up for, again, that development and expansion grant further down the line. Objective B, again, not to repeat myself, but is the development and expansion grant. And this is really where colleges are buying equipment, furnishing their labs, doing the instructor training, and getting programs off the ground. And this grant is 1.5 years and will end next June. So whenever we set out the grant, these were the identified priority programs, and many of which are being supported through this particular grant. So you'll see here that we actually have a pretty good representation in terms of colleges across the state as we think about the implementation of this grant. However, you can see here on the western side of the state, we're really missing representation from colleges. And so as we move into the next year, and we're hopeful for additional funding for this initiative, that we get some additional colleges to buy into this. We know that there's been a lot of funding out there for various initiatives, and we know there's initiative fatigue and different priorities. But we do want to make sure that as we think about EV infrastructure and readiness, this isn't just one part of the state that's going to be affected. It's really a statewide approach. So you can see here the list of colleges. And then in terms of overall grant focus and goals, in terms of programs to be developed, 14 colleges are going to be developing programs for alternative fuel technology or EV technician, hybrid EV technician, etc. There's a variety of different credentials within that particular program. The next highest is EV infrastructure installer, so thinking about installation of those EV charging stations, heavy duty EV technology, and then high voltage battery technician. And then as expected, programs that were being revised and or expanded, the highest being your typical automotive technology programs. Many folks are building in different EV credentials into that. And then we already have, as you know, some already existing alternative fuel technology programs. So those programs will be supported, expanded, etc. But even more exciting, we have about 2,000 students that are to be enrolled over this next 18 months in programs supported by this grant, with an expectant 1,700 to complete, and then close to 350 employers engaged through this process. And I think that's a really powerful number, because whenever we first set out on this path, I know that was a concern for many of the colleges. Well, we don't have Rivian in our backyard. We don't have Goshen right there, right? Who am I working with? Well, as you start to think about like who all in terms of employers this impacts, right? Your local Toyota dealer down the road, right? They're going to have to think about, right, the EV maintenance, repair, collision, etc. For this. And so we were able to see a significant number of employers to be engaged through advisory committees, through development of programs, hiring of students, etc., manufacturing plants included, through this grant. So we're very excited to see the ample employer engagement. And I know that both David and Kurt will talk about some other ways that we're engaging employers throughout this process. And shall you have any questions, please pop those in the chat or unmute yourself. All right, so in terms of required activities, you all have seen this. This was in the notice of funding opportunity, but I just wanted to kind of touch on each of these quickly. All of you will be required to participate in the iGen-led EV network. Even if you're not an iGen college, your participation in the EV network is required. There's going to be a variety of technical assistance offerings and faculty engagement that will be really exciting for all of us to engage in. And so, as I mentioned, this is really a system level initiative, and we want to make sure that we are collaborating and coordinating and able to scale and build upon things that exist in the system, and really move down this path together. Obviously, we're going to engage employers and communities as we think about this. But the third major activity as we think about building programs is we're going to be doing some pathway mapping. One of the priorities of the governor's office whenever we were putting together this grant was that we engage high schools and make sure that dual credit is built into these programs. And so in addition to the $10 million that we have, the State Board of Education was granted $10 million from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and they're exploring clean energy jobs more broadly, but EV will be one of those main areas that they're going to be moving forward in. And so they're going to be doing some alignment to our grant. So many of your high school partners may get funds in this next fiscal year to do similar activities. And so as we think about the various pathways in this sector, we want to make sure that when we're building curriculum and building pathways, that it's clear, what are the priority dual credit programs, dual credit courses, and then how can we create on-ramps from non-credit to credit or from our adult education partners using the integrated education and training model. So very excited to embark on that pathway mapping process as well. Building capacity and infrastructure. Many of you are furnishing your labs, are buying charging stations and cars, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Developing programs, expanding programs, right? And then while this isn't particularly a student-focused grant in terms of supporting students along the way, like maybe the Workforce Equity Initiative or the PATH program, that is an allowable activity, and we do want to make sure that students who are interested in these programs are supported as they move through. Right, we want to recruit, we want to retain them and complete them. All right, to give my voice a break, a perfect opportunity, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague David here to talk about our partnership with iGen and the very comprehensive professional development that they will be offering.
Thanks, Whitney, and thanks so much. So iGen is working with the ICCB here to help with specifically with the professional development, and that's sort of the training the trainers and providing opportunities for your instructors to receive certification and training in EV technology, and also providing technical assistance for you all. So let's move on to the next slide. And so in order to do that, iGen has its staff here. You had met them already, and they are assigned to each of the colleges, and you are, here on this call, and you'll see the names, near the name of your college. So Tim Gibson will be working with 5 colleges, Brad will have 4, and Kurt and I will each have 6 colleges, and then Rob will have 4. And so if you see your name up here and you'll know your contact, we will be reaching out to you. You won't need to right now to be able to, you can contact us through iGen. But what we will be doing, the coaches will be available on a monthly basis to meet with you as a small group to go over what your goals are and progress, and just to check in regarding making sure that your instructors are finding the right training opportunities, that you're on track for purchasing your equipment upgrades and whatever it is that you need for your labs. Also, you'll notice that these names are sort of familiar. So Rob, Brad, and Tim and I are, we each are assigned to work with these colleges in particular. And so you'll find that these staff are really well acquainted with your college, and we'll have some background information that will be really helpful, just to get easy to get to know you and easy to provide assistance. So let's move on. And so with this coordinated professional development, we're looking at sort of a progression, right, of curriculum and training development. And so this slide helps just to identify, the first step really for all kinds of tracks, people looking at developing curriculum teaching related to EVs is understanding battery safety and and high voltage in particular. And then from there, we have identified a number of training opportunities that are coming up really soon, and they will be actually, you know what? Actually, I should turn this over. Let me turn this over to Kurt, because he's been working on scheduling these things. Kurt, could I ask you to step in here and talk about some of the training opportunities at Weber State and Joliet?
Absolutely. So we're through iGen, we're working to coordinate some opportunities that faculty could do kind of together in more of a cohort experience. There's nothing to say that if these specific dates didn't work for you or your schedule, that you couldn't use your own funds set aside in your grant to attend a training on your own. And one big point we want to make is that the project as a whole, we want to position Illinois as the most highly trained state in the nation, or the highly trained area in the world, and as far as EV expertise. And so we really want to encourage faculty that as much time and energy that you could put into taking advantage of trainings, to take advantage of that. So, you know, if there's multiple trainings over the course of the next year and a half, work with your dean and your staff and whatever interest there is on your part or your institution to take advantage of as many trainings as you can. So if the funds weren't initially put on the right budget lines in that, I think ICCB is going to be very receptive to modifications or approvals to move funding for training. First off, we have 2 trainings coming up. One will be at Joliet Junior College in collaboration with the Advanced Vehicle Technology Group. And we have a couple slides that will go into more details of each of these trainings. And we're looking at that June 10th through the 14th. And the first date, about from probably noon to 4, we would have our EV industry collaborative meeting, and folks could attend virtually if they're not going to that in-person training, or they can be in person. And then June 3rd through the 7th, which actually comes before the Joliet one, would be at Weber State. They have 28 slots open for us right now that iGen is reserved, and we have instructions later in the slide on how to register for those slots. So the material at Weber State and Joliet will be relatively similar. Weber has very large labs and a lot of equipment, so you might get a lot of like hands-on experience right there with the vehicles. But at the same time, you could do both trainings, and then you'd have a good chance to network with all of the other faculty around the state and work side by side on these. But if you can only attend one or the other, that's no problem either, as they are both designed to be like kind of that initial deep dive into EV training. And then I think we have we'll go into a New Zealand track on another slide. And then I wanted to talk a little bit for kind of manufacturer specific trainings. We'll have opportunities later in the calendar year to do a training with Rivian, potential to do trainings focused on Tesla. And then over on the far right of here, we have the EV ITP for electric vehicle charging. That's a training that's specific. You have to be a licensed electrician to be able to complete the EV ITP, but we can help coordinate that. And then EVBox and Rivian have both offered to provide trainings at the Libertyville campus for EVBox. And then Rivian, it would actually be at their training facility out in LA. So as we have our first Illinois EV network meetings, we'll go through and get kind of feedback on folks' availability and their interest, and then we'll set up those training dates. And then on the heavy duty side, the Chicago Transit Authority has heavy duty trainings that they've developed, and they've welcomed iGen and the EV Rev Up faculty to come in and do trainings with them. And those would likely be one-off trainings, like a 1-day to 3-day trainings, kind of sprinkled out over the next 18 months. And so that would be a little bit less of a cohort experience, because we're just tagging on to their trainings for the CTA folks. So I'll hand it back to you, David.
All right. So we've got a variety of training opportunities and going in all kinds of different directions. Actually, well, first, the industry collaborative is a collaboration of employers, education, all the colleges and state agencies coming together. And so this is designed to help us to assure that instructors and curriculum are lining up with industry expectations and needs. And so this collaboration is a chance for us to work together on making sure that our training is on track and curriculum development is up to date with current standards. Different tracks will be available for passenger light duty EV and medium and heavy duty EV. That's dealing with like trucks and buses, and then infrastructure installers. So each of these will have different specific collaborative needs because different manufacturers, different employer groups for each of these three categories. Next. Why don't you talk about this, Kurt?
We're working with Daily College to schedule our first industry collaborative meeting on the EV charging infrastructure track. Anybody that's interested in attending is more than welcome to attend. It'll be specifically focused on the charging infrastructure. The invite went out yesterday, and anybody that has not received it, we sent it out to the what do you call it, the listserv for the Rev Up EV grant. But that listserv initially has the contact for like the initial points of contact for each institution that was put on that grant application. So anybody that is not on that industry, what do we call it, the listserv yet, you can email Whitney or add your email address to the chat, and we can be sure to get more and more folks onto that listserv. So this collaborative meeting will be March 1st at Daily College from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. EV Box is presenting. Rivian will be there virtually. We're reaching out to some of the labor organizations. Many of the state agencies will be presenting, and then we'll go through a couple exercises to get feedback on what's needed in building out training programs, how employers can, like what their requirements are around allowing existing employees to do training and what would be required there, or for building tracks specifically for new workers. And we're really trying to parse out like who the employers are and how the system works together. I think this is one of the more complicated areas to build out because there's so many different layers from the utilities infrastructure side to the electrical contractors to the OEMs and that. So we should have a really good agenda set up for everybody. So please feel free to type in that URL or scan the QR code, and then that'll take you to a Google form to fill out. And we're asking everyone to register, I think, by February 26th for the lunch count there on March 1st.
All right. So we have scheduled monthly meetings for you all, so we can keep in touch and keep up with there's gonna be a lot going on with this grant, right? A lot of activity. And so each month we will be alternating between the EV network and what's going on specifically related to the EVs, but also with technical assistance. So we'll have opportunities for all the member colleges of this grant participants to get general technical assistance and to check in monthly with the EVs. Did you want to add anything else, Kurt, there?
Not necessarily. I think the EV networks, we can take care of some of the logistics in terms of if we want to coordinate on purchasing equipment, we can work with ICCB and iGen on some of that. You know, some of the employers are willing to work with us as a group to get us that equipment. And then we can get a link out with a agenda that everybody can add items that they want us to cover. And all these meetings will be virtual. I just saw that come in the chat.
Yes, yes. And then these will be also, you know, apart from the coaching, right? The coaching meetings will be separate and set up with your main contact. And that way you can have someone that you can touch base with and feel comfortable with if you have more questions and just need to figure out what your next steps should be. So these will be in collaboration or combination with your coaching staff.
I guess one thing I did want to ask is the time for these meetings. We put the first Monday of every month at 11 a.m. And that was where the Illinois EV network had initially been meeting. But I know it presented some challenges with teaching schedules in that. We'd first started over the summer. So I put tentative. We wanted to kind of get feedback from the group though before we finalize those and send out calendar invites, that if there's a better time for everybody to let us know, whether if that should be a Friday. I think sometimes there's not as much teaching on Friday, but then there's a lot of other college committees and folks take off on Fridays. So that could present its own challenges, but that's another thing to add in the chat, or we'll send out that first invite on March 4th and then kind of finalize the time going forward and let everybody know.
Okay, next. All right. So I'll make a general statement, then I'll hand it to Kurt because he's got the details on a lot of this stuff. But with the state is very invested in helping not only to train the instructors across the state, but to develop curriculum, right? And that means having stackable certificates and starting with the basics, and then being able to adapt to the local needs of your particular college and your district. So while we'll have statewide curriculum developed as an end product of this grant, it will also be flexible and adaptable to local needs. And so you're seeing a lot of different types of training opportunities for your faculty. And so we're trying to really grab the best of the best curriculum that's out there and really kind of make it fit for Illinois, but also leave it so it's flexible for your local college. So anyway, that's just my overview. But Kurt, could you tell us more about these training opportunities?
Yeah. So I think the state has some experience leading through the Strengthening Community College Training Program grant, and then on the early childhood project where they work to build out some, say, like competency frameworks or competency CBE standards. And so I think the state's looking at developing a similar thing along those lines with the electric vehicle. So we know a lot of institutions, we have a pretty long lead time from when we get curriculum approved at the institutional level to go through, and then with it going through like the state and HLC approvals. So although we have an 18-month project to really be able to implement the changes and have that take effect, we really need to front load a lot of that curriculum work, at least at the highest levels, from the master syllabus changes or the program outlines. So we're kind of looking at like a March to September timeframe to really do a lot of that high level planning and collaboration together. So we'll be doing like the initial trainings in June, and then over that summer, we want all the colleges to be able to connect with your representatives that you want to serve on kind of that curriculum development task force. So not everybody that's in an automotive program necessarily has to help develop the curriculum, but those that are interested and have capacity, we'd welcome everyone to participate as much as possible in developing that curriculum and setting those standards. And of course, we'll be looking to ASE and the SAE guidelines and relevant other industry standards that we'd be aligning the curriculum to. And so I think through those EV network meetings, we'd get out more logistics and the details on organizing that. So on here, we show that March 1st, we've got the Charging Infrastructure Industry Collaborative that we went over a minute ago, and that'll give us a lot of the industry input and to begin developing that program. On the electric vehicle, we have a bit of input. We started with an open house last May, getting employer feedback. So we've got some old notes and input from employers on what that should look like and what's helpful there. And then on June 10th, at that beginning, the first day of that Joliet training, we'll have another industry collaborative meeting and bring everyone together. So any institutions that weren't part of the earlier Illinois EV network meetings will have an opportunity to kind of begin that industry collaborative discussion. And then over that summer, we'll be building the curriculum, ideally with something to present back to industry by September. to get feedback on, and then institutions can look at that and make any proposals that they want to bring to their curriculum committees in the fall 24 semester. And then following, from October to the end of the 18-month period to June, then we would be working on with those curriculum task force to develop additional curriculum resources, labs, and assessment frameworks. So there might be a lot of content that's already in place that, we can draw from and build into common resources for everybody. And then there might be some work that we develop from scratch as a collaborative. So I want to thank Kurt Ward at Joliet Junior College. So he's been working with David, and I'm not exactly sure how to say his last name, Mackholtz, of the Advanced Vehicle Technology Group, and he's the Assistant Dean of Transportation Programs at Suffolk County Community College. And the Advanced Vehicle Technology Group has a electric vehicle train the trainer boot camp, and they take this training on the road, so they can show up at the behest of any organization and bring together a number of faculty and provide this training. So the training will be June 11th through the 13th at Joliet Junior College, and there's hotels right next to the campus, right at the end of their driveway. And then June 10th, that afternoon, we do our industry collaborative. So folks can kind of come in Monday morning, and then the training ends on a Thursday, and then you have Friday to get back for your summer weekend. So it's 3 days of training. It's about $2,995. I believe each institution would pay that from their grant. And then Kurt Ward from Joliet will work with David, and we'll figure out more on how we make the payments and arrange all of that. And in another slide, 2 slides, we'll have a QR code to sign up for this training on June 10th. And then if we go to the next slide now, we have the training at Weber State University. That'll be June 3rd to the 7th. And they're out in Utah. So each institution would pay through their grant for their faculty to go out to Utah for the transportation, hotel, any per diems. And then just because of the particulars with Weber State and their Division of Online Continuing Education, we needed to get seats reserved before they were all gone. So I think what we're planning now is that iGen would pay for training for anybody that signs up for this program, and then the institution would pay the travel and incidentals. To do the Weber State training, the in-person is the Phase 3 hybrid and electric vehicle boot camp. But in order to be allowed to do that training, you have to do the Phase 1 and Phase 2 trainings online first. So the Phase 1 training is about 8 hours of contact time, and the Phase 2 online is about 20 hours of contact time. So it's really important for anybody signing up for this training opportunity that you plan on 28 hours of time between now and June 3rd to complete both of those elements to be allowed through Weber State's stipulations to participate in that Phase 3 hybrid boot camp. But in clicking on the QR code, filling out the form, iGen's going to pay for Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 of this for the June 3rd to 7th cohort dates. So if you can't make that cohort and you take it on a one-off training with yourself, just yourself, or kind of organize later, you'll be able to sign up and pay for that through your institution. But that first time, in order to hold these seats as a cohort, iGen's paying for that. So when we had first reached out to them, they had about 60 seats available between 2 days. And then a couple weeks later, when we talked to them next, they only had 30 seats available. So we kind of had to move fast and reserve some seats for Illinois if we wanted to get a cohort out there.
Hey, Kurt, we had a question.
Yeah.
The differences between Joliet and Weber State. Here you see that you have Phase 1 and Phase 2 online courses being required for Weber State. The question was, is that also required for Joliet?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it allowable?
Yeah.
Could you do a combination of online through Weber State and do the boot camp at Joliet?
Yeah, so absolutely. I'll take those in pieces. So the Joliet training is not requiring any like pre-work necessarily I should hedge this a little bit. we'll get more details out on whether there's like pre-work or videos or any kind of thing from the AVTG group with Joliet, but you would not be completing like the phase 1 and phase 2 from Weber in order to do the Joliet. So the Joliet's kind of, I think, made to be a self-contained boot camp over those 3 days. Anybody is able to sign up for phase 1 and phase 2 if you want to do those through Weber and not do the in-person. And then I think you would just kind of coordinate that with your own institution and grant to register for those courses. So we can share the link with Weber State and the page on how you register, and it's very easy through their continuing ed office to add them to your cart and check out and be able to take those.
Hey, Kurt, another question. So Weber State in Utah, it sounds like they're like a national leader and they've got some pretty advanced training there. Is that right? Is that why we're going out to Utah?
Yeah, as far as we know, I'm not an automotive instructor and I haven't completed the training, but from everything we understand that they have a very state-of-the-art labs, a lot of vehicles to work on, so they're able to get like a really low instructor to equipment ratio to be able to work on the systems. They're set up really well to teach everything. And then I know like our program at Heartland, they have really good YouTube videos on a lot of the different electric vehicle labs and components. And so our instructors have found it really helpful to incorporate their resources in the classroom. So it would give you more experience working on the same equipment that those videos are.
Well, thank you.
IGEN would cover I saw a question in the chat. Is IGEN covering the training for anyone, including adjuncts? Yes, that IGEN is happy to, we're happy to get as many adjuncts, full-time faculty. Your future full-time faculty might be your adjuncts today. So everyone's welcome to sign up for this. And if there's more demand than there's space, Weber State has trainings just about every month on this. So IGEN could easily set up another training in the fall or next spring. So we're happy to continue organizing those trainings. And if there's enough lead time, that could be paid for, by the individual institutions. But if, we just don't want the project as a whole to suffer because of complications with purchasing and that. So if IGEN needs to remove barriers, we're happy to do that.
We would like to see a wide representation at these early trainings. So that would be a preference, but certainly don't hold back, and we can try to figure out how we can get as many of your instructors through this hands-on training experience as possible. So it's certainly beneficial to look at these online phase 1 and phase 2 training, and then I think there's more training coming on this summer, isn't there? For online training with our instructors from New Zealand.
Yep. And we have a slide on that in just a second.
Okay, I'm jumping ahead.
Yep. Okay, so we had a question, how do we enroll? So here's how to enroll in either of those training opportunities. There's a QR code and a URL, and we'll share the links following the meeting as well, or you can take a screenshot and save it. So the Advanced Vehicle Technology Group, as long as that URL works, and please let us know if it doesn't or you're running into any trouble. That should link you to a Google form to fill out your contact information for the ABTG. And then, future communication will come out on how to register or how to officially pay for it. But filling out this form is you registering. It's not really just an expression of interest or anything. It's you're registering, you're committing to attend those dates. You can always register right now, and then if something changed in the next week or two, you could let us know and we could delete you back out of there. And then the Weber State QR code and URL is on the far right. And I see that there was a question in the chat on if someone attended the Weber State outside of this June, if IGEN would pay for it. And I think that should be sufficient funds in many of these grants to cover the faculty development. So we're not really paying for it because there's not funding elsewhere. It's just kind of a logistic thing. So if you would be attending outside of the dates right now, I think we'd recommend the institution pay for that training and take care of that registration on that individual basis. Is there a limit on the amount of faculty that can attend the Weber State training? no, we know there's a benefit to multiple faculty from the same institution going at the same time and building that relationship. So as many faculty, it's just a first come, first served basis at the moment. And again, there's other dates that if it fills up very quickly and we know there's more demand, we'll create another cohort to go out to Weber. And then why do we ask for the social security number on that form? That form is directly, iGen worked with Weber to get that Google form. So it's going right to Weber State. And they ask for the social security number because they use that in their LMS to create a seat for you in that course. And that's how they track the individual people. If you're not comfortable giving that social security number, reach out to iGen, and then we can reach out to Weber State and see if there's another way that we can get you registered in the course. From the early conversation, it sounded like that's required to get to their LMS, but we can, I think you could also set it up where you called them and talk to them and give it to them personally if you're not comfortable putting that on that Google form. Okay. The New Zealand Certificate in Electric Vehicle Automotive Engineering Level 5. So New Zealand has a program where they train on electric vehicles, and the way it works in New Zealand is that you become an automotive mechanic or an automotive engineer, as they call it, that's up through a level 4 of their post-secondary education system. And then the way that they had set it up, you had to be a automotive mechanic with at least 2 years of experience in industry before you could move into electric vehicle, being an electric vehicle, earn that certificate. And so they had built a program where people working in the field could specialize in electric vehicle, and they offered 4 courses, one at a time over the course of a year. So you'd take one course at a time. You'd meet virtually for about 2 hours, maybe one time a week, and then there'd be access to labs and information. And then the instructors would be on call. So if you had a vehicle that showed up in your shop and you went through the diagnostics and you weren't exactly sure what to do, you could message them on Teams and they'd have you send some diagnostics over to them, and they'd come on chats and kind of work you through the problem. And then they said it kept them fresh on what was happening in the field. And it was a really nice opportunity for people in the field to move into EV while still working full time. And then they would have one in-person lab per course somewhere at a network of labs across the 2 islands. So you'd take your online course for 3 months, and then you'd go one Friday, one Saturday, and do some of the hands-on labs working with that. We connected with them about 1.5 years ago to learn about their program and how they were doing that kind of competency-based education. And they offered to add our faculty to their course, and we were really impressed with. They have like an automotive engineering background and really went down into like the sub-module repair, and it wasn't just like remove and replace. And so we felt like their resources were really strong, and it gave students a really deep understanding, and then their support resources were really well done. And so we kind of asked them about the opportunity to partner with them in building out our curriculum and doing our training. And so they offered to do like an amended kind of cohort for anyone that was interested. You could sign up and do their electric vehicle engineering certificate as an international student, but they wouldn't focus entirely on just like teaching the content. It would be like partial content, but because people were doing the program at Weber and Joliet, they'd know that you'd have like a basics and know a lot of the content yourself by the time you were doing this with them. And so they'd focus as much on working kind of peer-to-peer as instructors and improving your practice in teaching EV and improving their practice in teaching EV. So it would be kind of a 1-year deep dive automotive engineering in EV to learn more about repair at the sub-module level and on improving both your teaching and their teaching. So this is another opportunity that we'd be excited to get us at least a small cohort together if there were a number of folks that wanted to work with the folks from New Zealand. I think individuals that are really interested in helping build out the curriculum here, this could be a nice way to get access to fully built out curriculum that we can pull from and adapt and remake kind of on a US system. And they built a lot of their curriculum to align to European standards. So again, there's a really high like international, I think, standardization that we'd see in that curriculum. So the dates would be kind of around late July that would start, and then would likely be over by completed by March of 2025. And then in terms of like the hand-on portions, we'd be happy to bring the folks from New Zealand over here, and we can offer maybe hands-on training with them next summer. And then if folks wanted to participate in an international exchange over to New Zealand, we could go over there and do some of that in their lab as well. But completing this online training, you would not be required to travel to New Zealand.
Let me just also just say, because it might be surprising that we're working with you know, a technical program on the other side of the planet. You know, they've been doing this for like 10 years. And so they've got, like you had said, Kurt, they've got an established program. They've been doing this for years. It's integrated into their automotive program, and it's not new to them. And so it really makes sense to work with these folks who've got this experience and are really super motivated to look at training trainers and looking at teaching methods for that hands-on experience too. So I've only met them a couple of times. I know, Kurt, you've been working with them for a while, and I think they're pretty impressive. So thanks for your work on that.
We don't have any QR codes or anything to sign up for that at the moment. So I think that would be maybe May, June, we'd kind of finalize that cohort and put that sign up out to everybody.
Thank you both for coordinating that. And I think it's important to note that, you know, these trainings are coming up and space is limited, but as both Kurt and David said, there will be additional opportunities either for you to go on your own or potentially another cohort later on in the year. If you are, I know many of you identify these specific trainings in your grant and you know which one you want to go to, etc. Some of you may be like wondering which one's the best fit for you. Excuse me, hold on. Do I do all of them, etc.? Then I think it's really important for you to reach out to Kurt and David and or your iGen lead to identify like which one's a good fit for you and when. Because I think that many of you do know, but some of you may be still in the phase of trying to understand which one's a good fit for you. All right, we're going to move through this quickly because you can't basically hear me, and I want to save time for questions. So outside of the reporting and the participating in the EV network, there will be some reporting specific to performance. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't have a template yet shared for reporting. I mean, you have the basic financial, which is for all the grants and the programmatic narrative, but we will have a pretty extensive student performance type report prepared for you all to fill out on a quarterly basis. These metrics are were built in consultation with the governor's office. And so we want to make sure that the goals that you set are the goals that you're meeting. And we want to make sure that we're capturing all those engagement with employers, engagements with students, etc. So quickly, I won't go through all of these, but I did note some important dates for you all here. All of you should have your executed grant at this point. If you don't, please reach out to me. You can start expending grant funds all the way back to January 15th. Reports will be due, the first report will be due April 30th, and then quarterly throughout the year. For the capacity grants, just making a note that November 30th and or extension requests are due for budget modifications are due. Then while the cohort B has until May 31st to do those budget modifications, I did not make a note for extensions here because we'll be ending 2 years worth of grant funds then. And so I need to identify whether we're able to extend that. This funding is executed upon, or will be disseminated upon execution of the grant. You'll have one check coming to you, so it won't be quarterly, and it's not federal funds, so it won't be based on reimbursement. Budget modification, same as with any other grant at the community college board, 10% or $1,000 of a line item, whichever is higher. You can work directly. You can submit these to iccb.ctellinois.gov. There may be times when you need to change your budget, and we're supportive of that as long as it aligns with the allowable uses of funds, which this grant is pretty flexible. So if you didn't include any training initially, then you want to go to some of these trainings and you need to do budget modification, we can approve those pretty quickly. We'll send this form out to you. Some of you already have it, but we'll send this form out to you at a later date. All right, again, as I mentioned, you already know and you identified outcomes for these various performance measures for capacity building. Again, we're really wanting to focusing on employer engagement of students, not necessarily through serving them in these programs, but thinking about career awareness, building partnerships with your high schools in this area, four-year institutions, obviously, as well, and then thinking about program development, review, or revision. Whereas cohort B has significantly more performance outcomes here, because we are looking at number of students enrolled, dual credit students, completers. You'll be reporting on this quarterly, but we will be validating this with our annual enrollment data that's submitted annually. And in terms of employment, again, we're going to ask you to collect that locally. We know that's difficult to do, but we will be doing a data match with IDES to get some of this data. It's just significantly lagged. That's why it's important for you all to collect it locally. And again, some of those programmatic elements, such as employers engaged, number of education partners engaged in this process, etc. I think those were pretty straightforward, and the outcomes provided by you all were lofty and ambitious, and I think we're very excited to see the work of this grant. All right, so we have a couple of minutes here, 1 minute, but folks can jump off or stay on if we need to continue discussing. I want to open it up for questions. We will share these slides out. I will add folks to the listserv if you have emailed me that. The recording will be available. That's usually a question that gets asked. Questions? None.
We did a great job. How about that? No, there will be a lot of support coming in for details, registrations, different training opportunities, and and some of this is still being developed, so that we have definitely things planned for the next several months, and we will be helping people to line things up as needed.
So there is a couple of questions in the chat now. Okay, so has anyone experienced pushback from their facilities department regarding the EV infrastructure? That's a question for you all and not necessarily me.
Yeah.
Maybe on our March 14th meeting, we could add that to the agenda and kind of talk about that EV infrastructure. There's, I believe, four or five colleges that we're looking at EV infrastructure, so we could have a break-off group talk about that a little bit.
So I think,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's all.
So someone asked about if the coaches are going to reach out to set up those meetings, or if they need to reach out to the coaches. So the coaches will reach out, right, David?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, someone has their hand raised here. Muhsin Habib.
Hi, hello everyone. Just a couple quick questions. One, could we get availability to this recording to review it later and go over it? Could this be posted somewhere? Could we get access to it?
Yes, the PowerPoint will be sent out immediately. The recording will take a few days, but it will be shared with the listserv as well. So it's really important that you identify, if you're not on the listserv, please let me know and I will make sure to add you.
All right,
It'll
excellent.
be on our website as well. So I'll share that link out.
Excellent. And just one more question about the training at Weber State. So our school had written into our grant training to Weber State, and then we actually have people scheduled to go before the time you guys have slotted. So you're saying the payment for that training is not in the grant? Our institution has to pay for that? Could I get some clarity on that?
So the reason why iGen is offering to pay for the training that we've got scheduled as that first cohort is because we want to, reserve the space. We think there's a lot of value to getting as many instructors from different colleges together, going through the same process at one time. And also looking at our timeline, things are moving quickly. And so we want to get this nailed down. So the reason why we're using some administrative funds to pay for that first cohort is just so we can reserve seats for you all. If you want to arrange, you should have funding for training built into your budget request to your grant funds that you've received in your allocations. So it's expected typically that grant should be able to fund your training and travel needs. This is just one exception so that we can reserve space, and we think that it's a good experience for instructors to be in this cohort with this group. So that's why we're paying for that one. It's just out of convenience and also to help us move things along. Anything else, Kurt?
No.
So if some of you are concerned because your budget is at that maximum capacity and you're unsure how you're going to be able to move some funds around, I think the conversation on the March 4th or whatever the next technical assistant EV network meeting is, I know Kurt mentioned about employers or vendors happy to sort of do fleet purchases. Almost all of you have identified at least one electric vehicle and as something you're purchasing, and those prices range. And so doing a fleet purchase for that or any other of the other equipment that's in there, I think that would be a really good conversation to have, to think through how we can get some of this equipment cheaper through a group or consortium or a fleet purchase. And then that may free up some funds for some of this additional training for you. All right, folks are jumping off. Thank you all so much for sticking on here. And I apologize for my voice. It was painful for me to listen to myself. So I do apologize for that. But great to see you all. And I very much look forward to the work of this particular grant. I think we're going to have some really great outcomes, and I'm hopeful for funding for fiscal year 25 to continue. Thank you.
Thank you.